Good morning, good afternoon, greetings wherever you are in the world. It's wonderful you could join us again for our update on traveller sentiment in the time of COVID-19, part of our Clarity in a Time of Crisis. Of course, we've been sponsoring and supporting research with Longwoods International, and we're delighted to be joined by our very good friend, Amir Elon, President and CEO of Longwoods International. And this is wave 15. It was in the field July 1. I'll pass it over to Amir very shortly just to give a quick update on the key results and findings. A reminder that all of this research and a range of other resources are available on our COVID-19 education portal. And a summary along with this quick webinar recording and the full slide deck can also be accessed there. So Amir, over to you to share what we saw as of early July.
Thank you, Chris. It is good to see you. We are back again. I wish I had better news this time, but I think to summarize it in a nutshell, the surge in new cases and the partial pausing or rolling back of reopening activities in some destinations is definitely taking its toll on consumer psyche and traveler psyche in particular as we're measuring things. As you mentioned, we went back to our panel, 1,000 adult travelers, talked to them about their sentiment towards travel and travel-related activities. Just because we're going into the 4th of July holidays, you know, all the news reports that were coming out there, and sure enough, it appears in the data. So starting right away here, you can see 76% of travelers planning to travel in the next 6 months have indicated they are in the process of or have already changed their plans. 45% canceling completely, 40% reducing travel plans, and about a quarter changing from flying to drive destinations. And of course, with European Union reopening some of its borders for international travel, but leaving the US out of that list of welcome countries at the moment, no surprise you're seeing a spike in changing from international to domestic plans there. So let's continue forward here. And my controller's not, oh, there it is right there. We're making some and a half where the volume of those just changing their travel plans, reducing their plans from say longer getaways to regular ones, changing. We saw, sorry, there the slide was going wonky there. There we go. From those who were changing their plans, reducing their shorter getaways versus just canceling their trip completely, we saw that gap growing between those changing and those canceling. Well, we saw it reverse now in the last 2 weeks. We saw more people just canceling their plans than changing, and obviously that's something to be concerned about. But there is potentially a silver lining in that, which I'll show you here as we get a little further down the road here. Again, that focus on changing the regional drive market, getaways, and so forth continues. It did dip just a little bit, but again, still very consistent with that quarter of the trips being changed to drive travel there. As we continue along, you can see when we ask these questions every week about those 3 key factors that would impact decisions to travel in the next 6 months, transportation costs and concerns about the economy remain low, and fear of coronavirus remains high. But again, you know, potential silver lining, coronavirus is kind of embedded in the psyche. It just ticked up very slightly, just by 2 points over 2 weeks ago. So we're still hovering at just below 50%. So hopefully, you know, maybe that's a sign that it's kind of being accepted as a temporary new norm, so to speak, in the eyes of the traveler. The economic factors, again, not spiking really, just kind of hovering around the mark that we've seen so far. So again, it's just a health issue, not an economic issue in most minds of the travelers, and especially the way they've changed their travel and downsized their travel and so forth. It's just that pent up demand ready to go. And then of course, this question we ask every week about folks' plans to travel in the next 6 months. As you can see, discouragingly, it's went 7-point drop from 72% to 65%, which matches the previous low, which we saw back in April. However, let me put some context around this. Keep in mind, this still shows, even at its worst, 2/3 of the traveling population still plans to travel in the next 6 months. So demand is there. And going right on here to the next slide. As it comes in, we asked a question that we asked back about a little over a month ago, about the same time the prior month, about whether or not folks were going to travel in the near term, the summer travel in the next 6 weeks. Before we asked between Memorial Day and July 4th. Now we're asking from basically July 4th to the next 6-week period to mid-August. And as you can see, only a third of traveling Americans said they're not planning to travel in the next 6 weeks. So again, despite the decrease in sentiment, despite all the bad news that we see on surges and so forth, those who have booked near-term travel, for the most part, still intend to carry that out, which is encouraging from that perspective. And again, no surprise, it's regional drive market travel, visiting friends and relatives first, and then leisure from there. And then as we look at the next data here, just overlaying from where we were when we asked this question just a month ago, you can see actually even less people not planning to travel than we did just going into the Memorial Day weekend, so 40% down to 34%. So again, a little silver lining on the near term and the near term opportunity that's there despite the challenges. As you can see, no surprise there, we continue to remain very divided on travelers as residents, whether or not they support opening their community to visitors, feeling safe to travel outside their own community as travelers, and that safety factor of dining and shopping locally. And when we look at that, again, given the news, no surprise, we saw a significant dip in those supporting welcoming visitors into their community because of the surges and the reports that you see now, those who have gone to certain destinations, perhaps bringing it back into their communities. And, you know, again, safety traveling outside the community, we saw that drop back a little bit. And of course, on the feeling safe dining and locally. Again, folks, all the more opportunity to engage your local community, get them to dip their toes in the water if you can locally, and it will improve the overall outlook in there. But of course, as always, it's a health issue first. So Chris, back over to you.
Thanks, Amir. Yeah, we saw in a number of these key indicators some settling back down in terms of the positivity of US travelers, and that's really against the backdrop of increasing COVID-19 numbers. It's interesting to compare, for example, the European Union and a more robust recovery in travel and tourism there, but of course their COVID-19 cases are something like a 12th to a 15th on a per capita basis. So they've made progress around the health and pandemic issues, and that really is the backdrop to all of this. This remains a health crisis. But there are some specific short-term opportunities, and Amir's flagged the importance of connecting with locals, activating your residents, and of course they can in turn activate visiting friends and relatives. So that VFR travel, particularly by car, is a key area of opportunity. So all the very best, and a reminder to everybody that the research is available both on the COVID-19 portal we shared before, plus on Longwoods International's website. And thank you so much for joining us. We'll talk to you soon.